All right. Cool. So did anyone get through all 6 examples? How far did you guys get?
Number 3.
Number 3, 4. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry we don't have more time to hack on this, but let's walk through them. I'm gonna mute some folks. Cool. So I think what we'll do, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll go example by example. And if you did get the example, I'd ask you to put it into Slack, and I'll run it on my screen, and we'll talk about it. And I anticipate that some of you have different ways to accomplish these, which should be pretty interesting. So let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then if someone would be kind enough to put in the first one, or excuse me, number 2, which says change the text on the first P tag to changing text. Let me put these in the slide so we can keep track of them. So change the text on the first P tag to changing text. What do we have here? So Zach has document dot, yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's check that out. So this is Zach's example, document.querySelector grabbing the P tag. In querySelector, we'll grab the first instance of a tag. QuerySelector.all will get all of a particular tag that you're looking for. .enter text, changing text, and there we go. So the first P tag in our DOM has been changed. That's awesome. Did anyone else have a different solution?
I just got one to work that just uses text content instead of inner HTML.
Cool, let's see it. Oh, is that the one you just posted?
Yeah, I just got it.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. So we still have the query selector. Let me refresh here. So this is Richie's example. So document.querySelector and then text content. Yeah, really nice. Let's check that out. Cool. Yeah, so that does the same thing. Let's go into the inspect element and let's see if we can decipher the difference between text content and inner HTML. Let's see if we can figure out the difference. Because it may not be that obvious, actually. So let's go up here to our P tag. And we have changing text. Pretty straightforward. And then let me rerun Adam's example. So hit the up arrow, and let's do the inner text example. We'll go back to that element, and yeah, so for this example, it's gonna look the same, accomplish the same thing, no biggie. That's awesome. Do we have any other varieties of this one? Any other examples of a solution? So I'm going to paste one into Slack. This is a little overkill, but this should work as well. So we talked before lunch that most of these methods will return an array of nodes. So when we talk about the document object model, kind of like branches of a tree, but we also refer to them as nodes. So in this example, I'm going to grab the, oops, I didn't copy it. Copy that one more time. In this answer, I'm going to grab that outer container, and then I know that the child node, I'm going to grab the fourth one, right? Because it's an array. It's going to be a node array, and so index of 3 would be the fourth one. And I'm going to run that first. Let's do this step by step. So let's just run the get element by ID child nodes, and we say they get all these nodes returned. And so I'm specifically going to grab the 0 or index 0, 1, 2, 3. This P tag is what I really want. And so I can do child nodes. Let me grab the third one. So that'll return that p tag that I'm looking for. And then I can do some inner HTML and changing text there. Cool. So I actually like the query selector better, but just wanted to demonstrate that there's several ways to go about this. All right. So number 3, change the color of the H1. So what did you guys come up with for that one? Refresh here just in case. All right. So Zach, document.querySelector H1 style.color red. Let's check that out. So I'll paste that in there, and there we go. So we made that H1 red. So let me ask you this. So query selector grabs the first H1 in the DOM that it encounters. This particular HTML only has an H1. So, we're being a little sneaky there. Did anyone come up with some other strategy other than query selector? Just curious. So what if we didn't know that the H1 we were searching for was actually the first one, not to mention the only one available to us? Did anyone come up with anything different? Just curious. So I'll paste another kind of convoluted example. I'm going to use my child nodes again. So in this example, I'm going to pull up that child nodes array of elements, and then I'm going to grab the first one and do styled color red on it. So let me refresh. Again, this probably isn't the sexiest solution, but just to demonstrate that there's different strategies for this stuff. Cool. All right. Any other suggestions? Okay. Eric, get elements by tag name. Each one. Oh, index 0. Awesome. Actually, Eric, do you mind coming on mic and explaining that? So we just said that there's only one H1 in our code. So why do you have to do an index? I mean, there's only one of them. Why do you have to be that specific?
Right. So when you get elements by tag name, it'll still automatically put it in an array of elements, even though there's one element in that array. You still have to select it as an array.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. So we talked about that before lunch. So again, just something to be mindful of. So if we run document.getElementsByTagName, H1, there's only one that exists. However, it's still going to return an array of that one object. So we would still need to call the 0 index on that. Yeah, perfect. Nice work. Let's check out number 4.
Mark, could you use instead of child nodes, children? And
yeah, let's check it out. Yeah, so I'm going to guess if we did children, because we had those 2 empty text nodes, so we'll probably need to do children index of 1. That's going to be my guess. But yeah, let's check that out. So I did the up arrow. This is the code. Oh, I didn't even, there we go. So let's go in here and change this to children. So let's just see what children look like. Yeah. So again, the tomato, the difference between children and child nodes is that children will ignore those text nodes, which can be annoying sometimes. So in this case, we'll just use index 1 to grab that p tag that we're looking for, and then we can replace it. So, so I will do index of 1 in our HTML. That didn't, so it returned changing text, but it didn't render there. Interesting. Let me run that one more time. Let me refresh. Oh, sorry, man. That was the color one. Jeez. What a dum-dum. My bad. Yeah, so you could use children on that for sure. You just need to change your indexing. Yeah. Totally brain farted which number we were on. Okay. Is that helpful? Does that kind of answer your question? Okay. Cool. Let's take a look at number 4. So I think some of you guys got to this one. Let's change the length and or color of a lightsaber. So any old lightsaber will do. And Adam pasted in some code. Let's check this out. So using query selector blade, which will select the first one. Yeah, nice. And then we're going to use the width property from style. So let's check this out. Awesome. Yeah, so it did increase just a little bit. If we wanted to make it really tiny, we could do that. But let's put it back the way it was. There we go. And it looks like we could also use background color here. So yeah, 2 different varieties. Let's check it out with background color. Yeah, so we changed the width and the color here. So changed kind of that inner section of the blade. Then there's a little bit of like shadow or a little bit of a blur effect there on our element. What is that? CSS. See what's going on over there. What property is giving us the blade? Oh, box shadow. Yeah, so we're getting that little box shadow effect, and that's kind of the little haziness around it. Awesome. Cool. Any other suggestions? Zach has query selector Vader blade. Oh, interesting. Yeah, this is a nice one. Okay. Let me refresh the page. So this one, yeah, so we're just digging in. We're going to grab the Vader element and then specifically the class of blade within that Vader element. So we're using some specificity for this one. I like it. And it didn't change though. Let me try that again. Zach, did that work for you? Did I just paste that in wrong? Blade style dot color.
I pasted it in wrong. Sorry. That was the first attempt. And then we realized that color, we were trying to change the text color.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so we just changed it to background.
Yeah. Nice. Another thing to note is right up here in like this hint number 2, but something to keep in mind is that remember JavaScript is camel cased. However, CSS and HTML uses dashes. So when you're writing the JavaScript code for CSS and HTML stuff, you need to, when you're writing the JavaScript, you need to play by the JavaScript rules. And so that's why we're doing background color camel cased here. Now, if we were putting this directly into a style sheet, we could do background dash color. So just important to note. So we could get away with something like that if we were in the CSS. Cool. Are you guys getting an echo and such?
It's not from you. It seems like when people come off and like mute, they get an echo. I can even hear myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me know if you're getting some feedback from me or something. Okay, 2 more. Let's knock these out. So how could we change the font in our JavaScript Academy? Did anyone get this one or get that far? Yeah, I'll grab some headphones here in a second. Actually, I think I have some right here. Always prepared. So how can we change the font in this page? So we're using a Google font, which is why when I reload the page, it takes a hot minute. I think we're using a Google font here. Yeah, we're definitely using a Google font. Hotlanta. Font family is defined in the P tags and the H1 tag specific, so we cannot access it simply from the body. Jason has an example that did not work. Document.body.style, font family, Helvetica. So did anyone get this to work? So I have some code that should work. Let me paste this into Slack. So this, I believe this should work. If we're going to attach, if we're going to change the font family of a specific P tag, but this is very similar to what that second one that Jason did with the query selector, because I would have picked the first one. Let's just try this out and see if this works. So get elements by tag name, which is going to return an array. I'm going to grab the first one and then change the font family styling. Yeah, so that worked for me. Oh, you missed a dot style. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you want to do query selector p dot style dot font family. Yeah, very nice. Cool. Okay, and lastly, make Vader's handle blue. Was anyone able to get that one working? Because there's several different, small divs like the pommel and the blade and the handle and such. So did anyone get this one going? Nice. All right. So let me try Adam's example here. Yeah. Cool. So we use the hilt class. So grab the first one again. Dot style background color blue. Yeah, very nice. I'm going to put one more optional solution in Slack here. So we could also do something like this. Again, just kind of getting comfortable with those those node arrays. We could also do get element by ID Vader and then grab all the child nodes. Specifically, I'm going to grab the one at index 1, which would be the second one. And then I could do style.background color blue. So if I just do child nodes, that's going to return this array. And I want to grab this one, so the handle, which would be index of 1 in our array, and then change the background color. So yeah, hilt or handle is just trying to dig into that haystack, get really precise, and grab the correct elements. And I'm going to stop my share. Did anyone else have any solutions or any questions about that? Did you guys enjoy that, Jedi Academy? Cool.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
So I think it was Adam asked the question, why is it child nodes 1 instead of 0? And I was wondering if I missed the answer to that.
Sure. Let me share my screen again. Do you mean what I just showed?
Well, like for instance, like changing JavaScript Jedi Academy, I'm wondering why we had to do get document by D container child nodes 1.
Okay. Yeah, let's check that out. So let me clear this out. So let's do it one step at a time. Which
Yeah,
I'm sure
I get everything before child nodes brackets 1 and everything after child nodes bracket 1. I just can't figure out the child nodes bracket 1. Yeah.
Sure. So let's pull up get element by ID container.
Yeah.
So we're grabbing the container. Then let's add a child nodes to that. And so we get this crazy array of child nodes. The reason I'm grabbing index of 1 is because I'm trying to grab the H1 tag, right? So when we use the child nodes method, it's going to grab these empty, goofy text nodes in addition to like the meaty the elements of substance that we also want. So that's why when I look in this array, it's like, oh, well, this is at index 1 because it's the second object in the array.
So yeah, what's up with that hashtag text if there's nothing in between the div tag and the H1 tag? Why is that there?
Yeah, so sometimes it's just the way that that particular method traverses the DOM. So if there's white space in your HTML, if you have like empty lines and such, for some reason, that's just the way the method works. It's going to read those as a text node.
Oh, so if we put in text there in between the div tag and the h1 tag, we would be addressing that text.
Yeah, so if you look here in my atom, it's not super consistent. I would need to go through the documentation to like fully explain it. But if you look here in the HTML, see how we have like this empty line between container and JavaScript Jedi Academy? Mm-hmm. So the DOM is reading this as just this generic text node. Mm-hmm. So if maybe there's some reason that I'm looking for an empty text node and that's where I want to insert some stuff. So maybe I would use child nodes to have access to those empty text nodes. Now, if I just wanted to get a little more precise, I could use children here. And I would actually suggest as a best practice, most of the time you're going to want to use children. Yeah. When you use children, see how those text nodes are omitted. Mm-hmm. So I use children. I use child nodes for some of these examples just to demo it. But children is going to ignore those text nodes. Got it. So in this example, I would grab index 0 because I'd grab the first one. Yeah, really good points. And again, this stuff you don't necessarily have to memorize, and it can get a little wonky, but just want to kick the tires with this stuff. Cool. All right. Yeah, so Christine says it's white space. Yeah, and that should be from the documentation. But if you just do .children, you're going to be in good shape. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. So what I want to do, it's 3:27. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to wrap up. You guys can just watch me in the interest of time. I want to wrap up how we load JavaScript in the browser. It was kind of the last portion of this morning's lesson. And then I think I'll find some time, maybe on Friday, and we can talk about looping over DOM elements. That section wasn't going to be super long, but I want to give you guys a break before outcomes, and also want Matt to come in here and talk about homework. So I think I'll take about the next 13 minutes and just put a bow on this morning's coverage. So if you want to follow along, I'm going to, if you just want to watch me, but if you want to kind of follow along at home and see what I'm doing, let's go back into the lesson from this morning. I'll paste it into Slack. Actually, I'll paste the exact spot in the code that you want to, the exact spot in the README that you want to go to. So if you click on that, we're going to go down to the how can we run JS in the browser section. And let me get set up here while you guys click on that. And again, if you want to follow along, I'm just going to use that same index.html that we were working on before lunch. I just want to talk through a couple of these concepts. So let me pull my index code back up here. Get all set up here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'll just share the entire desktop here. I'm going to put my scripts.js at the bottom. Try it one more time. I just like having my HTML kind of at the top of my window. And then I'll put JavaScript or CSS kind of at the bottom. That's just how I like to do it. All right, so if you remember from this morning, this index.html page, this is what it looks like over here on the left in my browser. It's pretty basic. And we were just using this to take a look at the document object model, or how the browser interprets the HTML code that it reads. So if we go back to the lesson, what I wanted to just quickly touch on, how can we run JavaScript in the browser? So there's a couple of different ways we can do this. The first way is we can run JavaScript if we put it inside of script tags in the head of our HTML document. So this may be one of the first ways that you guys learn to do it. I have some code here that I'm going to copy. So this script tag I'm going to copy and put inside my head here. Make this a little larger so we can see the whole thing. I'll clean that up just a little bit. Cool. I'll paste this into Slack as well if you guys want to follow along. So this script, it's pretty basic. I'm declaring a variable called response. When I run this code, it's going to put an alert box, going to shoot an alert box up. It says, hi, what's your favorite food? I'm going to then have a prompt box come up, and whatever I put in, it's going to be stored to this variable response. And then I'm going to use some template strings, which is kind of a ECMAScript 2015 feature. So I'm going to print or put another alert box that says, I wish I liked, and then the response variable too. It's sad being a computer. So pretty janky little script here, but let's see this in action. So I'll save my file, and then I'll refresh the browser over here, and the process starts. So the JavaScript's getting loaded in the head, and it's running. So what is my favorite food? I'll put in pizza here. And then the alert reads out, I wish I liked pizza too. And pizza, remember, is our response variable. That's where we stored that user input. And then it's sad being a computer. Okay, so that works okay. But let's try that one more time. And I want you guys to notice over here what happens when those three alert boxes, when I go through that, the three processes. So let me refresh my page one more time. Hi, what's your favorite food? Pizza. Wish I liked pizza too. And when I click OK, notice that my browser, can you see that it's still running here at the top of this tab? So I've got this little in process thing right here. So this demonstrates what happens the way that our browser parses our code. So we put the script information in the head of our HTML. So the browser starts reading that HTML document, and one of the first things it sees is this JavaScript. So it's running the JavaScript, and it's waiting for me to complete the script, right? So the rest of the page is kind of put on hold right now. And you can see that because in the tab, Chrome's still waiting. So it's like we hit the pause button, and right now the page load is paused inside this JavaScript. Once we complete the JavaScript, once I hit OK on this alert bar, then that will finish up the script, and then the browser will continue parsing and reading the rest of the page, and it'll continue building the rest of the DOM. So if you notice really carefully, when I click OK, we're going to see a little bit of a flicker because it's going to actually finish re-rendering the page. The page that we see right now, this DOM rocks and such, it's still old information. It's still from like the previous page before I hit refresh. So let me hit OK. And we didn't really see it that time. That was pretty fast. But essentially what happened is our script stopped right about here on this line 15. And it waited till I finished putting in the prompt and clicking OK. Then it went back through the rest of the code and finished loading the DOM. So the point of this exercise is where you put the JavaScript in your HTML really makes a difference. The load order matters, the order in which the browser parses and renders the document. So let's take this a little bit of a step further and hopefully demonstrate. Now I'm going to put this script into an external script file, external JavaScript file, which is really kind of the best practice, right? So let me copy the code inside of my script tags. I'm going to rip that out. And I actually already have it kind of baked down here at the bottom. Pretend that we're on the Today Show and I already have a baked version of this dish in the oven. So down here in my script.js, I just copied the code, but I added another little wrinkle. I'm actually going to create an element that I'm going to append to the DOM. So I'm going to actually append an element with that message inside it, and it's going to render here in the browser. That's my goal anyway. So up here in my head, I'm now pointing to a external style sheet, external JavaScript file. So let me link that up here. So if I type in script and hit tab, Adam's really nice and friendly and will auto-complete it for me. Let me clean that up. And then I'll go in here and put the source of my file, my script.js file. So note that even though I put my JavaScript in this separate external file, which is really the best practice, the browser is still going to load it in the same order, right? Because my script is still right up here in the head. It's still going to be loaded and read up here before I even get to the body section. So I put it in a separate file, but the browser is still going to read it in the same order. So hopefully this is going to barf on us. That's the goal here. So let me refresh. Hi, what's your favorite food? We'll put pizza again. I wish I liked pizza too. So now what I want to happen is when I click OK, I want this I wish I liked pizza too. I want that to be appended to my document. Excuse me. I want to see that in my browser. So when I click OK, it actually doesn't render. I get an error down here in the JavaScript console. So if I was running this and my browser, my DevTools were closed, and I didn't get the result that I expected, the first place I'm going to look to debug this is in my browser console in the DevTools. And sure enough, I go to the console and I get a really handy error message. So it says uncaught type error, cannot read property, append child of null. So what this is saying essentially is that it can't append a child to something that doesn't exist yet. Can someone come on mic and explain why I'm getting this message?
You didn't link your you didn't link your JavaScript below after all the HTML had ran?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So the JavaScript is running, but the JavaScript is running and I'm trying to append something to the DOM, but the DOM hasn't been created yet, right? Because the JavaScript's up here and all my body in HTML is below it. So I'm trying to append this element to this object that does not exist yet. So one way to fix this, who said that, by the way? I only see 4 people.
That was Brad. Brad nailed it.
Brad, our man Brad. Yeah, that's an excellent answer. So one way to fix this is I can move this script tag down to the bottom of my body, for example. So let me move that down there. I'll get it out of the head there. And let's refresh, and let's see if that fixes our issue. So I hit refresh. I can see that the browser is kind of, on pause right here. It's running in the background, waiting for the JavaScript to complete. What's my favorite food? We'll mix it up a little bit. We'll go with sushi. And I hit OK. And I hit OK one more time to complete that script. And sure enough, now that the DOM has been rendered and the script is running after the DOM has been rendered, the JavaScript has no problem appending a new element to the DOM. So the order matters, absolutely. So one strategy is to put the script down kind of at the bottom of your body tag, like right inside the closing body tag. That's one way to approach this. But I want to show you a more pro JavaScript-y type strategy to take care of this issue. And we do that with this function called window.onload. And there's varieties of these. There's also document onload, for example. But window.onload is more all-encompassing. So we talked about it this morning. Window refers to the images, all the HTML, all the CSS, any piece of content that needs to be baked into a website. That's what the window refers to. So for example, if I was going to run some JavaScript code, maybe I wanted to resize an image or do something to an image. Window.onload is a safer bet because window is going to make sure that everything is fully baked, locked, and loaded before this script runs. So I'm going to try this again. I put this window.onload function into my script. I essentially put all that JavaScript inside this function. I'm going to paste what this function looks like into Slack. Oh, thanks. Christine took care of that. And so now, just to prove this point, let me move this script back up to the head. Because initially, when the script link was in the head, our stuff barfed on us, right? But now let's see with this window.onload function if it's a little more user-friendly, if it works the way that I intend it to. So I will save that. Let me refresh my browser. What's your favorite food? Sushi one more time. And I hit OK. And it rendered. It was kind of hard to see because it was already on the screen initially. I could do that in a different browser window, actually. Let me do that. What's your favorite food? Sushi. Is that being a computer? And there we go. So no issues, no errors. So this window onload function is a really smart strategy to make sure that your JavaScript is going to run in the correct order and that it's not going to barf or interfere with the rest of the DOM being built and rendered.
Hey, Mark.
So yeah.
I noticed in your JavaScript where you're creating element, you're using a capital P.
Yeah, that's a good point. So some documentation that you look at, sometimes, I think it was on W03 schools actually, all of the documentation had it in all caps. It's really interesting. So let me put this a lowercase p. And let me refresh here. I'll open this in a new tab just so we have a clean slate. Favorite food. Yeah, so it still renders appropriately. I was looking through some documentation. I could swear it was W3 schools, and they actually had uppercase for all their examples. So that's probably why I just threw it in there. Let me take a look here. Create element. Create element method. Let's just take a look. Yeah, so notice in the W3 schools documentation that they have all of these elements capitalized for some reason. I feel like maybe when I was running through this, maybe I tried to create a div, lowercase, and then uppercase. Anyway, I kept it in there, but that's where it came from. For some reason, W3 schools has it all uppercase. But it looks like it works fine with lowercase, yeah. Cool, I'm gonna stop my share now. And any questions about window onload? Just kind of wanted to wrap up this morning's coverage. Any questions about that? It's really a pretty safe, not a bad thing just in general, just to wrap your JavaScript code in some sort of window.onload function. When we get to jQuery, we're gonna have something called document.ready. So it's really kind of a preemptive strategy to make sure that your stuff's going to render correctly. But that was an example of window onload. So we're at 3:43. I want to give you guys a break and then come back for homework. But any questions before we get up and stretch the legs and such?
Hey, Mark, I had a quick question. What's the difference between window onload and document.getReady?
Document.ready is a jQuery method. So document.ready is going to look like, I'll put it into Slack. So we couldn't use that here because we're not using jQuery. But it's going to look like this. And we'll talk about that next week when we get into jQuery. But yeah, if you take a look in Slack, so jQuery, the way that the browser knows, or the way that your code knows that you're writing jQuery code, is that it has a $sign there. So right now, since we're not importing the jQuery library, document.ready wouldn't work for this. Yeah, good question. Cool. All right. Great work this afternoon, you guys. So let's take like a 6-minute break. We'll come back at 4 o'clock. 3:50. And Matt will give us some homework, and then you guys will have outcomes. Okay? So we'll see you in 6 minutes.